You're about to hear a truth so raw, so fiercely guarded, it's been erased from the pages of modern psychology. In the next half hour, you'll uncover a secret that flips everything you've been told about female desire upside down, a truth so unsettling it was buried by Sigmund Freud himself, locked away in private letters, and shunned by a world too afraid to face it. This isn't about cheap pickup lines, dating app hacks, or shallow tricks to get a second glance. This is about the primal fire that drives attraction, the unspoken force that shapes every glance, every choice, every chase. And it starts with a story Freud never meant for you to know. A story that will make you question everything you thought you understood about women, yourself, and the game of desire. Picture Vienna, 1895. A woman named Anna von Lieben, a Viennese aristocrat dripping in wealth and poise, walks into Freud's office. She's unraveling, gripped by fits of hysteria, her body betraying urges she can't name, trapped in a marriage that feels like a gilded cage. Freud, then a hungry young neurologist with a knack for peering into the human soul, digs into her mind. What he finds shakes him to his core. Anna doesn't just want love or affection. She hungers for domination, for chaos, for a force that can match the storm raging inside her. In a private letter, never meant for public eyes, Freud scrawled, "Beneath the polished mask of the civilized woman burns a primal hunger, a desire that defies every rule we're taught to obey." This wasn't a fluke. It wasn't unique to Anna. It was a pattern, a truth that echoed across his patients. A revelation so explosive, it threatened to upend the moral framework of his time. Let's talk about another case, Dora, Freud's infamous patient. She was an 18-year-old firebrand, sent to Freud by her father after accusing a family friend of sexual assault. On the surface, it seemed straightforward. A young woman traumatized, seeking help. But Freud's notes, buried for decades, tell a darker story. Dora wasn't repelled by the man's advances. She was electrified by them. Her hysteria wasn't born of trauma but of frustration, a longing for a pursuit that never came. Freud called this the eroticization of refusal, the way a woman's resistance can ignite her own desire, turning rejection into obsession. It's a concept that feels alien in today's world of enthusiastic consent and clear boundaries. But it's rooted in a truth as old as humanity itself. From Cleopatra's calculated games with Caesar to the unattainable muses of blues legends like Robert Johnson, history shows that desire doesn't thrive on ease, it feeds on tension, on the knife's edge of denial. Now, let's bring this closer to home. You're a guy in your late 20s, maybe early 30s, scrolling through Tinder in a Chicago dive bar, a Miami gym, or an Austin coffee shop. You've been told to be respectful, to listen, to be the nice guy who never pushes too hard. You've followed the rules, texting back promptly, avoiding anything that could be misread as creepy, keeping things safe. And yet, your inbox is a ghost town. Matches fizzle, dates end with polite smiles and no follow-up. Meanwhile, the guy who barely tries, the one who ghosts, who doesn't care, who exudes an unshakable indifference, gets the attention you're chasing. Why? Because the modern narrative of attraction is a lie. It's a carefully constructed myth that ignores the primal wiring of the human psyche. And to understand why, we need to dive deeper into the first key to unlocking this forbidden code: mastering the nothing bothers me mindset. To master your emotions, to hold the kind of presence that draws women in like moths to a flame, you need to start with a truth most men never learn. Nothing external should shake your core. Freud saw it in his patients, men who crumbled under rejection, who let a woman's cold shoulder or sharp words unravel their sense of self. These men didn't just lose the girl, they lost themselves. The nothing bothers me mindset isn't about being emotionless, it's about being unshakable. It's about standing in the eye of the storm, whether that storm is a woman testing your resolve, a boss undermining your work, or a world telling you your instincts are wrong. Freud's work hinted at this when he described men who suppressed their aggression, their raw masculinity, only to find themselves invisible to women. Take Edward, a patient from 1908, a lawyer who had it all: education, wealth, manners. He was the archetype of the good man. Yet his wife mocked him, flirted with rougher men, and left him for a factory worker with a rap sheet. Freud's diagnosis? Moral castration. Edward had been taught to neuter his strength, to prioritize her comfort over his own fire, and it cost him everything. Think about your own life. How many times have you bitten your tongue, softened your edges, or apologized for something that wasn't your fault, just to keep the peace? Every time you do, you chip away at your own power. The nothing bothers me mindset is about reclaiming that power. It's about training yourself to see her tests, her silences, her provocations, her I'm fines as opportunities to show your strength, not your weakness. When she pulls away, you don't chase. When she snaps, you don't flinch. You hold your ground, not out of spite, but because your frame is ironclad. This isn't about ignoring her. It's about refusing to let her define you. And here's the secret. Women don't just respect this, they crave it. Freud's notes on Dora showed that her attraction spiked when men stood firm, when they refused to bend to her resistance. It's a biological imperative, wired into the female psyche, and it's the first step to rewriting the rules of attraction. Now that you're starting to see the game for what it is, let's pull back the curtain on the battlefield. There's a war being waged against men, not with guns or fists, but with words, laws, and a shifting social contract designed to strip you of your instincts. The casualties? Millions of men who no longer understand the rules, who've been fed lies about what women want, and who are paying the price with loneliness, frustration, and a creeping sense of invisibility. This isn't a random cultural shift. It's the inevitable result of ignoring what Freud warned us about a century ago. And to navigate this war, you need to master the second key: understanding the erotic paradox. The erotic paradox is the gap between what women say they want and what their bodies respond to. In 1953, Alfred Kinsey, the father of modern sexology, hooked women up to machines that measured their physiological responses, heart rate, skin conductance, the works. He showed them two types of stories, one about gentle, consensual romance, the kind we're told women dream of, the other about forced seduction, raw and unapologetic. The results were staggering. Their bodies lit up for the second story, pulses racing, skin flushing, pupils dilating, not for the safe, predictable romance, but for the dangerous edge of conquest. Kinsey buried the data. Why? Because it clashed with the emerging narrative of equality and comfort. Because it was too raw, too inconvenient for a world obsessed with sanitizing desire. This paradox isn't just a relic of the 1950s. It's playing out right now, in every corner of American life. You see it in the women who swipe past the nice guy on Bumble, the ones who ghost the respectful texter but can't stop talking about the guy who barely replies. You see it in the romance novels that dominate bestseller list stories of billionaire bad boys, outlaw bikers, and mafia bosses who take what they want. In 2024 alone, the romance industry raked in $4 billion. And the top-selling books weren't about supportive partners or equal relationships. They were about men who dominate, who challenge, who ignite tension. Why? Because desire isn't logical. It's primal. It craves polarity, not partnership. But here's where it gets sinister. Society has weaponized this paradox against you. You've been told that masculinity is toxic, that dominance is abuse, that the key to a woman's heart is to be her best friend, her therapist, her cheerleader. Yet the data tells a different story. A 2020 study in the Journal of Personality and Social Psychology found that women were significantly more likely to enjoy intimacy with partners who displayed assertiveness, even aggression, in bed, not because they wanted pain, but because passion requires friction. Freud put it best. Desire is born from the tension between surrender and conquest. And yet, the same culture that condemns male dominance rewards it in practice. Look at Hollywood's obsession with the bad boy trope, think Christian Grey in 50 Shades, or the brooding anti-heroes of every Netflix series. Look at the music industry, where female artists like Taylor Swift or Billie Eilish sing about toxic men they can't quit. Look at the divorce courts, where nice guys like Michael, the Seattle engineer, are financially gutted while their aloof exes move on unscathed. Michael's story is worth revisiting. At 32, he was the epitome of the modern man, feminist, emotionally available, always putting his girlfriend first. He cooked her favorite meals, supported her career, memorized her birthday down to the hour. Then she left him for a bartender who barely knew her name. Her words were a gut punch. "I love you, but I'm not in love with you." Michael wasn't weak, he was safe. And safe is the death of desire. Freud called this the hedonic treadmill. Give a woman everything she asks for, and she'll crave the one thing you can't give challenge. Michael learned the hard way that women don't want a man who bends to their every whim. They want a man who stands tall, who creates tension, who makes them feel something. This brings us to the third key, embracing the scarcity principle. Freud noted that attention is only valuable when it's earned, not given. In the 1970s, anthropologist David Buss studied mate retention strategies across cultures, from tribal villages to urban jungles. His most controversial finding: women were most attracted to men other women wanted and least attracted to men who were too available. This wasn't cultural, it was universal. The second a man prioritizes a woman above his own purpose, she begins to devalue him. Think about the guys who succeed on dating apps. They're not the ones sending paragraphs of thoughtful texts or double-checking her comfort level. They're the ones who keep her guessing, who have a life so compelling she has to fight for their attention. Scarcity breeds value, and value breeds desire. Now we go nuclear. There's a force buried deep in the female psyche, a trigger so potent it rewrites the rules of attraction. Freud glimpsed it. His radical protege, Sandor Ferenczi, proved it in 1936 with an experiment that nearly ended his career. Ferenczi played two male voices for women, one soft, agreeable, eager to please, the other deep, commanding, unyielding. The results were stark. 87% of women showed physical arousal to the dominant voice, even as they swore they preferred the gentle one. Their bodies betrayed their words. Modern neuroscience backs this up. A 2019 UCLA study using fMRI scans showed women's reward centers, the nucleus accumbens, the brain's pleasure switch, lit up for men who projected strength, not warmth. Freud called this the defiance paradox. The more a woman resists dominance, the more her biology craves it. This paradox is the fourth key, harnessing the defiance paradox. You've seen it play out. The friend, zoned coworker who pours his heart out, only to watch her obsess over the guy who ghosts her texts. The successful lawyer who can't quit her toxic ex. This isn't about low self-esteem, it's about instinct. Women test men, not out of cruelty, but to filter for strength. Every argument, every cold shoulder, every "I'm fine" is a challenge to see if you'll hold your ground. Most men fold. They apologize, they chase, they try to fix it. But the man who thrives, he doesn't flinch, he doesn't beg. He stands firm, not because he's cruel, but because he knows that strength is the currency of attraction. Let's talk about a guy named Chris, a 29-year-old gym rat from Miami. Chris was the classic nice guy, always available, always texting back within minutes, always putting his dates first. He'd plan elaborate outings, ask for their input, make sure everything was perfect. And every time, the women would drift away, citing vague reasons like no spark. Then Chris started experimenting. He stopped chasing. He started saying less, letting silence hang. When a woman tested him with a sharp comment, he'd smirk and change the subject instead of defending himself. Within months, his dating life flipped. Women who once ignored him were now texting first, vying for his attention. Why? Because Chris stumbled onto the fifth key, the silence strategy. Silence is a weapon. Freud noted that women's brains fill silence with emotional investment. When you explain, justify, or chase, you give her the power. When you say nothing, you force her to confront her own feelings. Try this. Next time a woman tests you, maybe she's late, maybe she snaps at you, don't react. Don't argue. Just hold eye contact, nod, and move on. Watch how quickly she starts chasing your approval. Silence isn't passive, it's power. It's the absence of neediness, the ultimate signal that you're unshakable. This leads us to the sixth key, the decisive imperative. Women don't want a man who asks for their opinion on every decision. A 2022 study in social psychological and personality science showed women experienced significantly higher attraction to men who made plans without seeking approval. Not because they're submissive, but because decisiveness is cognitive dominance, and dominance is erotic. Think about the last time you planned a date. Did you ask her where she wanted to go, what she wanted to do, what she was in the mood for? If so, you were handing her the reins. Next time, pick the place, pick the time, and tell her to show up. If she pushes back, smile and stick to your plan. You're not forcing her, you're leading her. And leadership is what she's wired to follow. Now, let's get to the seventh key, the reward-punishment loop. This isn't about manipulation, it's about conditioning. Freud's case studies showed that women only value attention from men who withhold it strategically. When she behaves in ways that align with your standards, say, she's respectful, engaged, present, reward her with your focus, your warmth, your time. When she doesn't, when she's flaky, dismissive, or testing, you withdraw it. Not as punishment, but as a natural consequence. You're not a doormat. Your attention is a privilege, not a right. This loop creates a dynamic where she's incentivized to chase you, to earn your respect, to align with your frame. It's not about playing games. It's about understanding how attraction works. The eighth key is where it gets real. Owning your frame. The men who thrive in this new world aren't the ones who chase women. They're the ones who pull. They understand that attraction is a psychological game, not a logical one. Your frame is your reality, your unshakable sense of self. It's the way you carry yourself, the way you move through the world, the way you refuse to let external forces, whether it's a woman's rejection or society's expectations, define you. Freud saw this in his patients who succeeded with women. They weren't the loudest or the richest, but they were the most centered. They lived by their own code, and women were drawn to that certainty like planets to a sun. Take Jake, a 35-year-old contractor from Denver. Jake wasn't a model, wasn't rich, wasn't even particularly charming, but he had a quiet confidence that made women notice him. When a date tried to test him, say, by showing up late or throwing a subtle jab, he'd laugh it off and keep the conversation on his terms. He didn't need her approval, and that made her want it. Jake wasn't manipulating anyone, he was just living authentically, refusing to bend. That's frame control, and it's the ninth key. Living unapologetically. Living unapologetically means owning your desires, your ambitions, your masculinity. It means lifting heavy, chasing your purpose, and building a life so compelling that women want to be part of it. Freud's darkest insight was that the feminine soul despises what it begs for. Women say they want vulnerability, but they're drawn to strength. They say they want equality, but they crave polarity. The man who lives unapologetically doesn't resent this, he embraces it. He knows that attraction isn't about pleasing her, it's about challenging her to rise to his level. This brings us to the 10th and final key, the ultimate inversion. The grand secret, the one that ties all of Freud's work together, is that female desire isn't about the woman at all, it's about you. The moment you make her the prize, you lose. The moment you live for yourself, your mission, your strength, your vision, she begins the chase. This is the power move Freud hinted at but never fully articulated. The man who masters himself masters attraction. You don't need to manipulate, to scheme, to become someone you're not. You need to become the fullest version of yourself, unapologetic, unshakable, undeniable. You've just been handed a map to a world most men will never see. A world where desire isn't a mystery, but a code one you now know how to crack. You've learned the nothing bothers me mindset, the erotic paradox, the scarcity principle, the defiance paradox, the silence strategy, the decisive imperative, the reward-punishment loop, owning your frame, living unapologetically, and the ultimate inversion. These aren't tricks, they're truths. rooted in biology, psychology, and history. They're the keys to navigating a world that's stacked against you, a world that wants you docile, predictable, and safe. But you're not safe. You're not predictable. You're a man who's ready to live by his own code, to wield the power of polarity, to ignite desire not by chasing it but by embodying it. Type liberate in the comments if you're ready to claim this knowledge, to step into the man you were always meant to be. And if this hit you as hard as I think it did, do me a favor. Hit that like button, subscribe, and share this with one guy who needs to hear it. Because the truth isn't just power, it's freedom. Now go live like it.